time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
All righty, let's do it. This Monday, October 16th, 2023. As Chad Erickson told you, I am Jason Page. Good to have you with us. Guy Chad's got some amazing pipes. If I'm born in another life, I want to be the guy that does the voice for like Westwood One. I want to be that guy. David Lee, I think is his name. It's got like the most amazing pipes in the world. Or make me Ben Patrick Johnson and just give me that like voiceover voice. You do know the dirty secret of like the voices here. There's literally like 5 people who have all the work for like movie trailers, TV shows, commercials. There's like 5 people that have all of those jobs. Just telling you. Good to get the program started today. Our good friend Sam Yarnell is here, ladies and gentlemen. Not feeling so princely, though. Not feeling so princely. He is struggling right now. He is in a slump. There's no way around it. While yours truly is on a hot roll right now. I'm a hot shooter. You want it? You want me with the dice in my hand. You need me with the dice in my hand right now. 3-1 back-to-back weeks for Jason Page. But I'm not here to gloat. I'm not here to gloat or rub it in on Sam. Not even a little bit. We got a lot to get to in the show today, so I don't want to waste too much time talking about me. We'll get into Week 6 in the NFL. We'll get into the craziness of last night's Sunday night game, the ALCS Game 1, which had me wanting to throw my MacBook Pro through the television, and I'll explain why, and some crazy odds and ends as we got ready to start the show this morning. A couple of really interesting stories that I want to get to before we wrap it up for today. But we do start it out in Week 6 in the NFL, and Sam, I got to tell you, I was more than shocked with some of what we saw yesterday. Maybe you weren't because you're not as high on some of the teams that we saw lose yesterday as I am. So let's start with the unbeatens. I was never that high on Philly. I think you and I were opposite. I was down on Philly. You were down on San Francisco. I'm not surprised Philadelphia lost a game. I am surprised the way it all happened yesterday because they've been kind of lukewarm all year, despite the fact that they were 5-0. You have to kind of look at who they're playing and all of that stuff. And if you dissected the games, Philadelphia, and I think most people would say this, I'm not breaking any new ground here. I think most people would say Jalen Hurts through 6 games this season has basically played B- football. And if not for DeAndre Swift, which masks a lot of the struggles this team has had offensively, it's been a disjointed offensive effort. But the Jets yesterday, coming up with that victory, the way it happened, with Hurts throwing 3 interceptions, that was an eyebrow raiser for me.
The Eagles have been playing down to every single one, of their opponents all season. And it finally came back to bite them in the butt. That's exactly what they did yesterday. They should have scored 42 points in this game. And Jalen Hurts just did not have it. It wasn't ready for the Jets defense, I guess. I don't even know. I don't know how you throw 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions, even against that Jets defense with the weapons in that offense.
It was a makeshift. It was a make work secondary, basically. I mean, because a lot of their guys in the secondary were hurt. And they still were able, in man coverage, they basically said, we're going to throw everybody at you. We're going to leave our guys on an island in man. And they were able to stick with those guys.
Yeah, it was weird game for Devontae Smith in this one, right? The Philadelphia receivers in general, but Devontae Smith especially, the way that we've been building him up in the fantasy community outside of just the regular football community, the Eagles offense, there's something wrong with them. They're, like I said, playing down to all their opponents. You look through the Vikings game, they played down to the Vikings. They let the Vikings hang around in that one. The Commanders game, they needed overtime to beat the Commanders. I think that I'm a little more disappointed in myself for believing in this team as hard as I did for so long when it was so clearly and obviously evident that they are just going to continue to play down to whoever they're playing against.
Or maybe this is just who they are, Sam. I mean, this is the Super Bowl hangover. Maybe this is just who the Eagles are.
I don't know if I believe that, though.
Six
Jalen
games
Hurts
is a pretty healthy sample.
Talent-wise, you look at that roster up and down, from the offensive line to the quarterback and from the defensive line to the safeties. They are in the upper echelon of talent at every position. There are no glaring, obvious holes when you look at that roster. It's hard to say that the Philadelphia Eagles aren't one of the most talented teams in football. They cannot figure it out right now. And quite frankly, same goes for the Buffalo Bills. Right now is the best time for these kinds of things to happen and for them to play down to their opponents so they can analyze it. And them being 5-1 through these 6 games, it is a good sign with how poorly they've been playing. The Eagles can figure it out, and they'll still be in it when we get to late January.
Yeah, I would say they'll still be in it, and especially when you look at the rest of the NFC. But talk about the Jets for a second. When we looked at the schedule before the season started, and we go win, loss, all that stuff, we thought with Aaron Rodgers there was a chance this team could be 3-3 through the first 6 games. The fact they're 3-3 with Zach Wilson, I'd give Robert Saleh Coach of the Year right now for the fact that this team is 3-3 through the first 6 games with Zach Wilson as the starting quarterback, who gets better in increments each week. Not huge increments, but gets better a little bit each week. You know, if he's not going to win you a game right now with his arm, at least just don't lose the game with your arm right now, especially when you have a defense that plays as well as this defense plays. And the Jets to be 3-3 through 6 games with Zach Wilson, if I had given odds on that before the season, they would have been pretty long if I had said Zach Wilson's going to be your starting quarterback through the first 6 games after Aaron Rodgers gets hurt in the first play from scrimmage or third play from scrimmage, whatever it is, in week 1 of the NFL season. If I said you're 3-3 through 6 games, you'd run and take that.
Yeah, but the thing is, what I'm taking away from the 3-3 record is not the 3 wins, it's the 3 losses. Those 3 losses were ugly. The loss to the Cowboys, that Patriots loss was abysmal, and the Patriots are probably the worst team in the NFL right now. I think we can all collectively agree on that. They're worse than the Panthers, which is whoa. The 3 losses for the Jets have just been horrible. And you look at the wins.
But they've also beaten Buffalo and Philadelphia. I mean, so it's very difficult.
Buffalo and Philadelphia, when the Buffalo and Philadelphia quarterbacks play 2 of their worst games of their career.
And you got to admit, though, the Jets defense has something to do with that, Sam. Come on.
No doubt. The Jets defense is top 10 in the NFL, 100%.
I'll go top 7. I'll go top 7, top 8. Not to pick, not picking, but you know, I think they're probably top 7, top 8.
I'd give them 7 or 8, sure. Without DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, they're number 12, number 13, still top half of the league without your 2 best quarterbacks. The coaching of that defense is great. Robert Saleh is a great defensive coach in the NFL. I mean, he showed that in San Francisco before he got to New York. It's not a new phenomenon. I'm never going to drink the Jets Kool-Aid, man. They're not going to finish above 3rd in that division. They're not going to sniff the playoffs. Like, at the end of the day, let's be real with ourselves, because there aren't going to be 2 wild card teams out of the AFC East this year. When Aaron Rodgers went down, unless the Miami Dolphins absolutely fall off and the rest of the AFC is just horrible and somehow it's the Dolphins and the Jets. But I don't see it happening. The Jets are just another team.
The Bills fall off. I mean, the last time I checked, the Dolphins still have a better record than the Buffalo Bills right now, and they will play again, obviously, later in the season. Rest of the Jets' schedule: Giants after the bye, the Chargers. That game in New York. Chargers having to travel across country. At the Raiders. I mean, those are 3 winnable games for the Jets. Those are 3.
I would say
really
the opposite. I would say I could see them going 0-3 in those games. I could see them losing their next 5 straight. I actually no. You
can't see. You don't see a scenario where they could beat the Giants. Really?
That's the thing. That's what I was just about to say. Well, Jets Giants in MetLife, I feel like no matter what, that game's kind of a toss-up. You know what I'm saying?
My point is that all three of these games are toss-ups, whereas the Jets were prohibitive underdogs in a lot of these games early on in the year. They're getting to the part of the schedule now where if they get through the early part, the schedule softens up a little bit for them for the next few weeks where they've got a chance. I mean, they could be above 500. They could be above 500 through 9 games. I mean, they really could. It's not crazy to think of them at 5-4.
That would require 2 wins against any of these 3: the Chargers, Bills, or Dolphins.
No,
that's
Giants.
Not happening.
No, Giants. They're 3-3 right now. They can go 2-1 in the next 3, which is the Giants, Chargers, and Raiders. The Raiders with Brian Hoyer, God only knows what's going on with the glass, jaw of Jimmy Garoppolo. The Chargers, who can be world beaters one week and terrible the next, and the Giants, who might, who knows what the mental mindset of that team is coming off last night. We'll get into that coming up. Then they get the Bills.
That team is, period. Who knows what that team is?
We'll get the Bills after that. Then you get home for the Dolphins. Home for the. I'll be interested to see what that Jets defense does against the Dolphins, though. And we know the Dolphins.
Jets-Falcons game.
That Jets-Falcons game will be interesting. It's
going to be great.
Then they get the Texans.
Tough game.
Home game, and that's a game for that's a home game for the Jets. Then they're at the Dolphins, loss. Home for the Commanders. You telling me you couldn't see them beating the Commanders, who have been very up and down?
Wherever the Commanders are on Christmas Eve, when that game comes around, I will be interested. I'm looking at the Commanders game and the Falcons game. Those two are going to make the Jets season in my mind. If they go 2-0 in those games, I would say that the Jets are probably a 10-win team. If they go 0-2 in those games, I would say the Jets are probably a 6-win team. And if they go 1-1 in those games, I would say the Jets are probably a 9-win team.
At the Browns for second to last game, which could be a huge game for wild card implications, because those two teams I think are going to kind of be in the same boat. And then Jets finish with the Patriots, which I mean, they've never beaten them. I don't know. You never know. I mean, eventually they got to beat them. If there was ever a year for them to finally get a win against the Patriots, maybe it's this year. And it could be the final game in the career of Bill Belichick, because I see a very likely scenario here where if this thing continues to unravel in Foxborough, that the Patriots find a graceful exit for Bill Belichick.
That game is going to be Joe Flacco versus Kyle Sloter, because Aaron Rodgers will have already come back and retorn his entire calf muscle off of his leg bone.
No, you're not going to see. If you see Rodgers, it wouldn't be till the playoffs.
That Jets-Patriots game, I'm telling, let's, mark this, clip it. That Jets-Patriots game, Week 18, is going to be the worst game of the season.
No. I think you're wrong, man. That game could have huge implications. I'm putting it
out there right now.
All right.
I think that game is going to be the ugliest game we see. I'm talking like final score 3-2 type of game.
How about the Niners? Boy, oh boy. I mean, look, I knew Cleveland was really good defensively, but I didn't know they were that good. And now we do have to say, and I think you got to say this right out of the gate, and I think we have to be fair about it. The Niners, Christian McCaffrey gets hurt in this game. Deebo Samuel gets hurt in this game. And those are two huge offensive pieces of the 49ers puzzle. But with that being said, and I said this yesterday on X, you got to beat the Browns when P.J. Walker's the starting quarterback. I mean, as many excuses as I can make for the Niners here, you've got to be able to beat the Browns. Granted, it's on the road, but when P.J. Walker's, and I have to say, he actually played pretty well yesterday. He acquitted himself nicely. But you've got to be able to still find a way to win that game. And frankly, they're a wide right missed field goal away from winning that game. So, I mean, they still were right there. You're going to, okay, go kill Brock Purdy. Come on.
So
I'm waiting for it.
Let's call him by his real name. So Fraud Purdy was in action yesterday.
Now you sound like Skip Bayless.
True colors. Let's also remember that, Christian McCaffrey got hurt. He still led the team with 11 carries, which was 6 more than the person in second. And he had 3 receptions, which was second on the team.
Didn't play in the second half, though.
Christian McCaffrey had the ball a ton in this game. The San Francisco offense couldn't do jack with him. And then he left, and Brock Purdy looked like a deer in headlights because he didn't have the best offensive player in the league standing right next to him anymore. It was predictable. We knew this would happen. Deebo Samuel's a great receiver. They were left with Brandon Ayuk, who was getting blanket covered the entire rest of the game, the entire second half. And every time Brock Purdy looked at him, he didn't know where else to throw it because Brock Purdy can't go through more than one read because he usually doesn't have to because everyone in that offense is always open.
George Kittle, boy, let's also say this yesterday. George Kittle, where were you? George Kittle was absent. Talk about AWOL yesterday. Throughout the entire game, all I kept hearing the announcers say was, all right, this is that moment where George Kittle George Kittle might as well have been sitting on the bench alongside Christian McCaffrey.
And I knew when I was watching this game, I knew this narrative would develop, and it's not the right one because it's a Kyle Shanahan move. He does it all the time. When he goes against a great defensive front, he'll use a tight end as a pass blocker, and that's what George Kittle was doing yesterday. And quite frankly, he was doing it rather effectively. Brock Purdy had a lot of time in the pocket. He just couldn't make a decision to save his life, which we all knew that was coming because he's fraud Purdy.
He's not fraud Purdy.
It was hilarious, the use of offense that Kyle Shanahan had with Brock Purdy.
He got outcoached yesterday. Kyle Shanahan got outcoached yesterday. Make no mistake about it.
Jim Schwartz owns Kyle Shanahan historically, right? I forget what the numbers are, but his career numbers against Kyle Shanahan, he's nearly undefeated, I think. When Jim Schwartz when Jim Schwartz defense goes against a Kyle Shanahan offense. So that's, Detroit, Atlanta from back in the day, all those kinds of matchups.
Let me just throw this out at you. 215 yards of total offense for San Francisco yesterday, which after Miami and maybe Buffalo at times this year, San Francisco's offense has been really good. They had 215 yards of total offense. That's staggering.
Brock Purdy was 12 of 27 for 125 yards. I'm not even going to do the math on how many yards per attempt he's averaging, but that's got to be 5. That's horrible.
That's
terrible. Touchdown and interception, and he only took 3 sacks. So, yeah, like I said, getting good protection back there. But, he couldn't make a read to save his life. He couldn't read a children's book in the pocket yesterday, let alone an NFL defense.
Cleveland's 3-2. Cleveland, say this, man. Cleveland's 3-2. If you see them on your schedule, you're losing some sleep. You're like Wink Martindale. You ain't going to sleep very well because that team is tough. Other than one game this year where that defense found itself on the field quite a bit. Was that the Baltimore game? I think it was. That Browns team has played really well. And that is truly right now. If you look at them and say that's a wild card team. That looks like a wild card team right now.
Let's not forget one of their 2 losses. They gave up 26 points.
Mm-hmm. That was the one game
to a Matt Canada offense. Mm-hmm. No, they gave up 28 points to the Ravens last week. This is not, I don't know why we're writing home about this defense when they had a great performance week 1 against the Bengals and Joe Burrow on one leg. They had a great performance against the Titans and Derrick Henry, who can't carry the ball anymore, as evidenced yesterday in London, and a Titans offense that is completely incompetent now, and a 49ers offense that didn't have the best player in the league in the backfield for half the game and has a fraud at quarterback. I don't get why we're getting so sold down the river on this Cleveland Browns defense. They're good. They're top.
They're really good.
They're top 5 right now for
That's
sure.
That's really good. That's going to give you a chance to win every week, Sam.
Not with that offense, not with PJ Walker at quarterback.
Well,
with
Deshaun Watson should be back next week.
Not with Elijah Moore as your number 2 wide receiver. Not without Nick Chubb in the backfield.
The schedule is friendly, though. The schedule is friendly for them. Look at who they play. They get the Colts next. That's winnable. We saw what that team is with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Who's certainly capable of keeping you in the game. But I think they're going to be all over him. Remember, that's not a guy that can run around and make tons of plays with his legs. So the Browns in Indianapolis for their next matchup on the 22nd. Then they're in Seattle against the Seahawks. Home for the Cardinals, winnable. In Baltimore. You think they're going to lose to the Cardinals?
Yes, God. That's a game that I will pick that week on Page versus the Prince. Tell the intern to remind me when that week comes around. But yeah, I will bet on the Cardinals against the Browns 6 ways to Sunday because the spread in that game is going to be 10 and a half.
The spread is one thing. Cleveland's going to win the game. Cleveland's going to win that game. The Ravens,
tough one.
Then in Baltimore, home for the Steelers. Home for the in Denver against the Broncos, at the Rams, who are really an enigma. Very hard to figure out the Rams right now. Home for the Jags, home for the Bears, at the Texans. Nobody wants to play the Texans right now. Home for the Jets, that game that we alluded to earlier, which could be really. I'm telling you, I have a feeling that's going to decide which of those two teams makes the playoffs. And then they finish against the Bengals in the final week of the season. So, I mean, there's some games they can pick off some wins still on there. They've got 3. What do you think it's going to take? 9 to make the postseason? 9 and 8 is going to make the playoffs. I think 9 and 8.
10.
I think there's a lot of attrition there. I think 9 and 8 is probably realistic right now.
I think in the AFC, it'll be 10. I think in the NFC, you could probably get away with 9. I think there are just so many good teams in the middle of the AFC.
Yeah, but they're all going to beat each other up. They're all going to beat each other up. Let's just run through it here. This is a fun exercise. Dolphins and Bills are both going to make the playoffs. Okay.
Whoa.
Oh, come on. Stop it. The Bills are going to make the playoffs. I don't care. No matter how down I am on them and the injuries and all that stuff, the Bills are going to make the playoffs. The Dolphins are going to make the playoffs. One of them is going to win the division. One's going to be a wild card. Fine. Chiefs are going to win a division. Either the Ravens or Bengals is going to win the AFC North. And we'll take the Jags in the AFC South right now, right? And the Texans are certainly in the conversation as well.
Did you say either the Ravens or the Bengals are going to win the AFC North?
Yes, absolutely.
You're writing
Hands
Cleveland
down.
off.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Have you watched the Bengals the last 3 weeks? If you aren't waking up on the Bengals now, then you're not waking up at all. Then you're just a hater. If you haven't watched this team the last 3 weeks, you're a hater. That's it. But Ravens or Bengals, and I'm still not sold on the Ravens, although that defense is really good. But let's just say Bengals and Ravens both make the playoffs. So 2 of your wild cards right now are Ravens and either the Bills or the Dolphins. So what's that leave you? I mean, what's that leaving you?
That's got to be 10 wins because the Bills and Dolphins and Ravens, I would say, are all going to win 11 games at the very least. Those are all 11 or 12 win teams this season. So
Texans,
you got to have 10 to be the last wild card team.
I think 9. Let's see. 3. So that leaves 1 slot. Right?
Yeah.
Leaves us 1 slot.
Team. All those teams that you mentioned are all 11, 12, 13 win teams.
I don't think the Bengals are. I don't think the Bengals and Ravens are.
You don't think the Bengals or Ravens are going to win 11 games? You think winning that division is going to take less than 11 wins?
Well, I'm saying, the division winner might have 11. Wild card team with 10. I mean, look at the Ravens. Look at the Ravens right now. 4-2. 4-2 home for the Lions next week. I think they lose that game. Then they're at the Cardinals, who are not an easy out, but we'll say Ravens win that game. Then they get the Seahawks, another team nobody wants to play. Browns after that. Then the Bengals. They got an interesting, I'll tell you what. Their schedule is, man. They got the Lions, Cardinals, Seahawks, Browns, Bengals, and Chargers, and the Rams, then the Jags. I mean, they're gonna really be put. Then the Niners, then the Dolphins, and they finish with the Steelers. I mean, it could go south in a hurry if that offense doesn't start picking it up. If Baltimore's offense doesn't start picking it up, it could go south in a hurry. They might be 4-2 right now. They could be, 6-6 through 12 games. That's not unrealistic. With that schedule, they could be 6-6 through 12 games with 5 to play and going, oh bleep, we got to put our foot on the pedal for the remainder of the season. Just saying. I'm telling you, there's just, and this gets me to another point, and then I want to get to the Bills last night. The Bills and Giants and the fraud that was perpetrated on the public in the final play of that game and the untimed down. There's, as much as we talk about, frauds and bad teams and contenders and pretenders and all this stuff, there's just no easy wins. There's just no easy. All right, Denver and Chicago, maybe the Patriots, but the margins are so small. And if yesterday did not show us that, if it doesn't continue to show us that every week, and I do this, I go through this process every year where I wind up making this speech on some show, where the margins are so small in this league between a 2-win team and a 10-win team. The margins are not as big as you think. The talent disparities are not as big as you think. Or even if the talent disparities are big, a team plays down. There's so many games that wind up coming down to just a kick here, Jalen Hurts throwing off his back foot here, a bad call in the Giants game in the end zone here. I mean, we're talking about a Bills team that's 4-2 and a Giants team that has 1 win yesterday. And literally the play came down on the road for the Giants with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback to a bad non-call made in the back of the end zone or a Tyrod Taylor mistake at the end of the first half. I mean, the margins are that small. And to go full circle here to one of the things we like to talk about on the show, Sam, from a handicapping standpoint, that is why it's so difficult to make any money. If you're not going deeper into the games and either live betting or picking player props and that sort of thing, which I think many times is much safer. Although yesterday it was hell for me because of injuries. I had Jimmy Garoppolo at 166 yards passing at the half, and then he doesn't come out of the tunnel for the second half. And again, I wanted to throw my MacBook through the TV. But it really does go to show just how difficult it is to pick this league, and why we can make fun of you for going 1-3, but the margins are that small.
Well, yeah, I mean, last week I was separated from 2-2 by the hook.
The hook,
1-3.
The hook, Captain Hook, gotcha again.
Yeah, margins. That's why betting on football is so fun, right? That's why we do it for fun so much, is because you never know what's going to happen, right? The Giants were plus 850 on the money line coming into that game. And there were cash outs being offered of people like more than doubling their money in the third quarter. That football is fun, man. It's not like, and that's why you're exactly right. It's why we like betting on it so much.
Man. It could break your heart.
But also the rarity of it, right? Like we have 17 weeks, 18 weeks now of this. And after it's all over until those 18 weeks roll around again. So we want to get the most out of it that we can. And, doing this helps us do that. But also it's good on the league for keeping everything interesting. I know a couple of weeks ago on the show, I went on a little tear about how the NFL, it may have been last week actually, how they've stopped caring about the on-field product and talked about how we don't have any one-score games anymore and the upsets all suck. And the week after I say that, we get both of the undefeated teams going down in one-score games. And hey, good for the NFL. Credit to them.
It was wild, and obviously that takes us to what happened last night with Baltimore, with Buffalo and the Giants. And why'd you give me that look?
Baltimore.
Well, it starts with a B. And my brains are mashed potatoes right now. It's Monday. And I work through the whole weekend like you do. So anyway, last night's Giants-Bills game. First of all, hats off to Tyrod Taylor. I mean, that guy's 34 years old. He barely ever gets to play. And he came out last night and played a hell of a game on the road. Made some really good throws to Slayton. And the Giants were right there. And it felt like, Saquon Barkley got stronger as this game went on. And again, it goes to show what that team was missing here for the last few weeks with Saquon, obviously not able to play because of the ankle sprain. But the Giants go out there last night and, you put it all out there and you play 60 minutes. 60 minutes plus when you count the untimed down. And to have an official. Now, look, I could go two ways on this. One, if Tyrod Taylor and the Giants don't come away with 0 points at the end of the first half, who knows? Maybe this thing is different. It's the fallacy of the predetermined outcome, and I know we don't know how the game would have played out if the Giants make that kick, and maybe the Bills have to do some different things offensively to get themselves in a position to win the game. So I think people pointing just to that is kind of silly. At the same time, it's a factor. It matters. You cannot manage a clock in the NFL that poorly in that situation, whether it was the run-pass option or it was, the option to change the play for Tyrod Taylor, who cannot change the play there away from a pass, or you talk about the play to end the game, which is basically the same as the play before it, where you've got a defender with his back to the quarterback, grabbing onto the jersey and making it impossible for Darren Waller to get his arms up to make a catch. I mean, look, and again, this goes back full circle to the gambling conversation and the sports betting and the handicapping conversation. There's a lot of people who are going to look at that with kind of a skewed view and say, oh, come on, man. I mean, how does that not get called wink, wink, nod, nod? It's a lot of people. I mean, and for the sake of transparency in the game and officiating, to simply throw your arms up and on Tuesday, the NFL will put out a report probably saying, yeah, penalty should have been called there. Well, great. The Giants are 1-5 now. Who friggin' cares? Their season's over now. Whereas if they win that game, who knows? It catapults them. You never know what's going to happen. But for Buffalo to get a win that way, Bills should be 3-3 right now, Sam. You know it. That team should be 3-3.
No,
they did not deserve to win that game.
No. The Bills should be 5-1. That loss to the Jaguars last week was just heinous. Shout out to the NFL for making teams fly across an ocean.
Everybody has to do it, win the game.
It's actually not true. The team they were playing against didn't have to do it, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, the Giants, the Giants, their season not being over, oh my gosh. Whether they won, lost, or drew this game, the Giants season was over 3 weeks ago. The Giants season was over after they were getting blown out by the Cardinals at halftime. The Giants are the fourth best team in their division. That wasn't going to change whether they won or lost this game. They're in shambles as an organization. They spent the sixth overall draft pick. They spent the sixth overall draft pick 5 years ago on a guy who is an incompetent quarterback in the NFL, almost on a Mac Jones level of bad.
Oh, that's silly.
Tyrod Taylor was a saving grace for the Giants yesterday in their offense, and he had 6 points at halftime. There's a serious conversation that needs to be had as to if the Giants actually want to win games. Do they need to move away from Daniel Jones and to Tyrod Taylor just because of how well he functioned in that offense? And again, he had 6 points at halftime in that offense. The Giants are a dumpster fire. The Bills did the same thing the Eagles did with the Jets yesterday and played down to their opponent. Ken Dorsey, again, for the fourth week in a row, is not capable of scheming guys open. I don't know what he did before the Miami game, but he needs to go back and do that before every game for the rest of the season, because the Bills' offense looked different in that game than they have in every other game they've played this year. Yeah, what an indictment on the Giants that they couldn't win that game. The Bills handed them opportunity after opportunity. Darren Waller talking about the play at the end of the game. First of all, they shouldn't have had the untimed down to begin with because Darren Waller
the play before was pass interference. Of course it was. Of course that's pass interference.
Right. So sure, even assuming that. Second of all, Darren Waller did not earn either of those penalties, has not earned either of those penalties this season. He's been.
You don't have to earn it. If it's a penalty, it's a penalty.
Right.
You got a player with his back to the quarterback twice in a row, grabbing onto the jersey. I don't care about reputation. It's a penalty by the book.
Trying to sell referees on every call.
It's a penalty.
You're gonna not get calls that actually are penalties.
You can't call one and not the other.
Darren Waller, he continues to be a letdown this season, right? The Giants going into this year, we're a tight end away. They signed one of the best tight ends in the league. We're everything else away. Just absolute shambles for the Giants offense. The defense is actually not terrible. Like Dexter Lawrence is a pretty good player. That one linebacker they have went off last night, Okunawe or whatever his name is. It starts with an O and there's a K in there. He's really good. The Giants defense has a lot of potential, but Brian Daboll is lost as a coach. I don't know whether he needs to go back to being a coordinator, whether he needs to find another team, but it has gotten bad in New York for Brian Daboll. He's got to get out of there now.
I disagree. I just think I think the injury to Saquon Barkley, which sort of set the tone for a lot of what you see. I think Daniel Jones needs Saquon Barkley. Look, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that he needs Saquon Barkley. There are quarterbacks in this league that either elevate the game of those around them, or there are quarterbacks in this game who are competent who need others to help elevate their game. And I think Daniel Jones is the latter more than he is the former. I think he needs that guy. I think he needs Saquon Barkley in that lineup. From a pure balance standpoint, if you're looking at the balance of that offense, they are unable to run the ball, period, when Saquon Barkley is not there. It makes them a one-dimensional team, and the Giants aren't built to be a one-dimensional team. When you look at that receiving core, yes, we could talk about the addition of Darren Waller. They needed more help at receiver in the offseason. They didn't go and get it. You have a makeshift offensive line that's had a ton of injuries there throughout the season. They can't protect the quarterback. And the one thing you didn't mention in all of this is they have the worst offensive line in football. They've given up more sacks than anything. Of course, Daniel Jones is going to look terrible when he's on his ass every other play because the offensive line cannot protect him and he's running for his life. So I think
that's a good point.
I think it's a down year for the Giants. And it may go south. Well, look, it's going to go. It's obviously at 1-5, not in a good place right now, right? And you do have to make a decision as an organization. Do you want to win games and be, a 7-10 team at the end of the year, which gets you nothing from a draft standpoint immediately? It doesn't get you into the Marvin Harrison conversation if you're talking about a game-changing receiver that's in this draft. Maybe if you're the Giants, you do have to tank at this point. I don't know how you do that, though, if Daniel Jones is healthy.
Bobby Okereke was the name that I couldn't think of before.
His family thanks you.
Shout out Bobby Okereke. That dude is a dog. Yeah, Evan Neal is horrible.
Oh, my God. You heard the whole Evan Neal story, didn't you? Where he crushed the fans.
Yeah, he might be one of the worst offensive linemen in the league. Penalties, missed assignments, on top of all the off the field stuff, the dude is just a basket case. Who was it? They had someone in their offensive line the Giants did last night was it Justin Pugh? I think it was Justin Pugh. Yeah. Who they signed.
Oh, they got him off the couch.
Yes. Right. And he said Justin Pugh straight off the couch. It was awesome. It was very cool.
La'el Collins is another guy. There's some talk about the Giants maybe going picking him up as well. You got to do something. You got to do something with this offensive line. But just to go back to where I started in this whole Giants game, they lost, and that's fine. They had 6 points at the half. Tyrod Taylor can still sling it and still play the quarterback position.
Totally.
Yeah, and it says a lot about a guy who doesn't get to play other than a couple of kneel downs here and there. It says a lot about a guy and his professionalism and his work ethic to be able to just show up and on the road in Buffalo against one of the better teams in the AFC, if not all of football, and be able to go out there and play the game he did. It was impressive. Just saying.
So not my favorite, but one of my favorite Bills. Actually, it probably is my favorite. My favorite Bills jersey that I own, and I wanted to get it. I couldn't find it last night, and I was going to replace Taylor Hall with it today.
Wow.
My favorite Bills jersey that I own is the red color rush from the first year the Bills did it, and it is which is 2017. It is a number 5 Tyrod Taylor Bills color rush red jersey. So I wanted to wear it last night because the Bills are wearing the color rush and they were playing against Tyrod Taylor. But I love Tyrod Taylor. He is an electric factory under center. As much as like he couldn't run that offense that is just like a
extended plays with his legs. I mean, I was really impressed.
He made that offense look better than the beat up 1993 Toyota Camry that it is, right? and when you look, another thing, you mentioned Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
If you take away Saquon Barkley's longest rush, he had 23 carries for 59 yards.
I don't disagree with any of that, but 24 for 93, he got stronger as the game went on, and just his presence makes teams have to be honest when it comes to stopping the run. Just having him out there on the field, there's no getting around it. It's innate, and I think he'll get stronger, obviously, as the season goes along. All right, quick timeout. I want to get to some baseball. ALCS Game 1, and what made me want to throw my MacBook Pro through the television. I wonder if anybody could actually guess what it is. Anybody guess what made me want to throw my MacBook Pro through the television? You'll find out next on the Sports Wrap. All right, we are in. Oh, look. Works better when I actually turn on the mic. Thanks for being with us. Good to have you back. If you are not following the show over on X, at the back page, you can watch us there Monday through Friday on Twitch, Jason Page 77, YouTube, and Facebook. Just look for the Sports Wrap with Jason Page. And the podcast, the audio-only version of the show, is available as well, Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts right after we finish the video version of the show. So let's talk about what happened last night in Houston, game 1 of the ALCS. And what do you know? Bruce Bochy's team continues to find ways to win baseball games.
The pitch is on the way. And Tavares hits it deep to right field. Back goes Tucker.
That works better when I actually have the right pod up. Here we go.
History. There's the first
There you go.
postseason home run for Leody Tavares. It gives the Rangers a 2-0 lead.
Final call, courtesy of 105.3, The Fan in Dallas.
3 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. The payoff pitch. He struck him out swinging, and the Rangers have drawn first blood. They have shut out the Astros 2-0.
Astros were below 500 at home this year. And I heard somebody point out the stat. Might have been A-Rod or Jeter or Ortiz. It probably wasn't Ortiz, because I don't think Ortiz is the type that quotes stats during the pre or post game. Might have been A-Rod, but no team that's finished under 500 at home during the regular season has won a World Series. I mean, that's pretty remarkable when you think about it. And it's hard to believe the Astros with that lineup, that team, under 500. I think they were 40 and 41 or something like that. I don't know. Or 40 and 43 when you count the postseason. I forget what it is. But they just haven't been very good at home this year. And that continued last night. You got timely defense from the Rangers. Aroldis Chapman just living on that razor's edge, man. You saw it in the last series. You see it again in this one. I'm waiting for the blow up. You know it's coming. Maybe it'll just happen in the World Series for Bruce Bochy's team. You'd like to get one out of the way there. Last night he gives up the long fly ball to deep left center. I think it was Heim that made the play out there, or Evan Carter. I forget. Somebody made a great play and then doubled up Jose Altuve.
Evan Carter.
Yeah, it was Evan Carter. But the Rangers get a nice win in game 1, and you beat Justin Verlander. You beat Justin Verlander, who pitched well. I mean, if you told me pregame Justin Verlander goes out there and gives up 2 runs through whatever, 6 or 7 innings, I figure the Astros figure out a way to win the game. But here's what I haven't mentioned yet. Did you know that the Yankees traded Jordan Montgomery to the St. Louis Cardinals for a Harrison Bader who's not even on their roster anymore? They gave him away for Harrison Bader. And look at Jordan Montgomery last night. Look at Jordan Montgomery in this whole postseason. Look at Jordan Montgomery in his whole postseason career. That made me want to throw my MacBook through the television last night when I watched Jordan Montgomery put out that kind of effort last night. And know that the Yankees basically gave him away for a bucket of baseballs named Harrison Bader, who has nice flowing blonde hair and little else.
So I'm trying to remember correctly, but I think that Jordan Montgomery was really bad with the St. Louis Cardinals. And I don't remember what they gave him away for. Let's see.
I'll look at it. Make your point.
That's right. No, that's right. They, at the deadline, dealt Montgomery to the Rangers for Chris Stratton, John King, and 2 other prospects who I've never heard of. Stratton's a pretty good one, but that's crazy that the Cardinals, the big story here, and I agree with you that, yeah, the Yankees suck, but that's not really anything new. The big story here, how about the St. Louis Cardinals in a down year flipping Harrison Bader for 4 prospects, one of whom I know is decent, at least. 2 of whom I've heard of, which means they've got to be somewhat notable. Because I'm like, I know baseball, but I'm not one of those super nerds. I don't know every prospect ever. 2 of those guys, I think, have decent major league potential in the future. So I think that's credit to the St. Louis Cardinals here for me, picking out Jordan Montgomery from the Yankees and flipping him in a year where they thought they were going to use Montgomery to be competitive and turning it around. I think that that's one of the highlights of the season for the Cardinals, if we're being honest.
St. Louis, by the way, with St. Louis, Montgomery was 6-3, 3.11 in 2022. Then this year he was 6-9, 3.42. And in this era of baseball now, where obviously offense rules and all of that stuff, and he's a guy that's healthy, made 32 starts in 2023, made 32 starts last year, and that's the guy the Yankees gave up on. That just, again, it just drives me nuts. Texas is going to win this series, by the way. That team's just riding hot right now. They are, Sam.
No. I don't disagree with you. I just think that it's hilarious that was a deadline day deal that the Yankees were making for a postseason push, and their big acquisition was Harrison Bader.
Brian Cashman, man. I plan to actually get to this before we finish, but we're actually almost done because we've been here almost an hour already because we get so NFL centric, which I don't mind. But Kim Ng. If you didn't hear the story today, the Marlins and Kim Ng are parting ways. She declined her option for 2024. And the only reason I could think she's doing that is she has another job lined up. I don't understand otherwise. I mean, the team made the playoffs last year. Why are you leaving if you're Kim Ng?
So, not that I'm a very connected person in any world, but what I've heard from sources, we'll just say, is allegedly after Kim Ng built this amazing team with the Marlins, which she really did, like especially this year, picking up Berger and Bell at the deadline and turning them into that postseason team that they were.
Luzardo.
She has done an outstanding Jorge Soler. She's done an outstanding job in her time with the Marlins. Now, ownership came to her after this season and said that they wanted to make her the number 2. They wanted to implement a president of baseball operations or something, or a CEO who would be above her, and she would report to that person.
Wow.
And she was like, rightfully so, was like, oh my God, I just did all of this and this is what you're coming to me with? No, I'm out. I'm done. I'm gone. That's what I would have done. That's what anyone would have done. My gosh, Marlins, what are we doing? What are we doing?
That's why they're the Marlins.
Seriously.
Seriously, the Marlins don't go hand in hand. It's not a serious organization. It's just not.
Right when we thought that they were done Marlining, like right when it looked like, oh wow, they've got a great team. Like they're going to be a playoff contender for a couple of years at least. Like they've got a good young core. Luis Ariz, where did that come from? Not that he wasn't good on the Twins, but still, I thought that I was high on the Marlins, and I'm a Nats fan. Like that takes a lot. And then they do this. It's like the Mets. Mets gonna Met, Marlins gonna Marlin. It's just the same thing.
World Series odds, by the way, now Rangers plus 165. The Phillies plus 190. The Astros plus 340. And gosh darn it, you could still get the Diamondbacks at plus 500, man. Still get the D-backs at plus 500. Lay a hundo, win 5. Just give me that. Give me that. ALCS odds coming out of game 1 now. The Rangers minus 210 and the Astros plus 172. That's a lot of juice. That's why I had to get the Rangers before the series started. Astros will get game 2 though.
Yeah.
You have to think.
There will be buyback spots on both teams in that series if you are intent on betting it. I would bet you that number flips at least one more time before the series ends.
Eovaldi in game 2 tonight, plus 108 for the Rangers. Astros minus 126. The Diamondbacks and Phillies game 2, or game 1 of that series, I should say. Zach Gallen for the Diamondbacks plus 136. The Phillies minus 162 with Zach Wheeler on the mound. Who do you like tonight? Do you have a preference?
It's tough. This series is because I don't know.
I sense wishy-washy.
Very, very. Because here's the thing. I want to go Phillies because it seems like they're an easy answer. And whenever something seems like the easy answer, it's probably not the answer. Especially when you're talking about sports handicapping.
Yeah.
I like the D-backs. Give me the D-backs in this game. Give me the D-backs in this series.
It's playing with house money, man. Definitely the team with the least pressure on it of these Final Four, without question. Without question. It's not even close. Monday Night Football. Monday Night Football. What's the matter? We didn't even talk about Monday Night Football.
That was my face when I looked at this number for the first time right before we started the show, because quite frankly, I forgot Monday Night Football was even a thing because these two teams are so irrelevant in my book. Like, this is the irrelevant bowl to me. Regardless, this is a terrible spread.
Chargers plus 1.5 plus 106 on the money line. Cowboys minus 124 and 50.5 is the total.
What a missed number. Like, the Cowboys are going to absolutely kill the San Diego.
It's like a home game for Dallas.
Chargers.
It's like a home game for the Cowboys.
Sure, that, but also their game last week, they're going to be playing pissed off football. They're coming out. I'm taking Cowboys. Give me the Cowboys minus the 1.5. First off, straight up. Jerry in Louisville, because I know you're listening. We're going Dak Prescott over his passing prop of 253.5.
Dave in Connecticut, too. Don't forget Dave in Connecticut. Give him some love.
No, the one we're giving for Dave in Connecticut, we're giving Dave in Connecticut the Cowboys team total over. What do we have here on it? I believe it's 26.5. Yeah, 26.5. Cowboys are scoring 27 points easy in this one.
Oh, boy. You heard it there, ladies and gentlemen. I wouldn't be shocked if the Chargers won this game. But I'm a Herbert guy. And I'm not sold, and for good reason, I'm not sold on the Cowboys. We saw what that team did last week. In a big spot. Prime time. On the road. State of California. Give me the Chargers. I'll take the Chargers plus 1.5. I'll meet you at the window. I'll meet you at the window. I haven't looked at any of the player props. Have to check them out. I got crushed yesterday on my pick'em bets with Jock MKT. Got crushed. Because of injuries. Jimmy Garoppolo. Awful. That's going to do it for us. We're back on Tuesday. We'll get a full recap of all of the college football, which I have not talked about. The embarrassment that is Colorado football. Great was that. Notre Dame roughing up USC. Who saw that coming? Caleb Williams and company. Stymied in South Bend. It was a bit of a separation Saturday in college football. You know, it's finally things are starting to crystallize a little bit more after this week. So I'm sure we'll do some college football on the show. Probably have a guest too. For the great Sam Yarnell, I am Jason Page. We'll see you back here on Tuesday for the Sports Wrap. Good to have you with us. Thanks.